there, and beside him Eric Finch, and they were involved on the organising committee back many, many years ago. Okay? Well, 10, 12. So, I say you're very welcome. We're going to get the proceedings, and we're going to ask you as much as possible maybe to adhere to the times. We will be back over for coffee at 11:30, and you will see the exhibitors there, and please do support them. At the end of the day, we're going to have our prizes, and those exhibitors have donated prizes. Okay, so I'm going to invite James Lunney, who's head of School of Physics here, just to give you a few words of welcome.
Okay, so just to say, welcome again to the School of Physics after 12 years. And perhaps also maybe mention Tony Scott, who has done so much to promote physics in Ireland, and it was so gratifying to see that he received a Person of the Year award in the recent ceremony. For those of you who have not been here before, you're sitting in the Schrodinger Lecture Theatre. That's not because Schrodinger was a professor here in Trinity, but because he was a professor in the Dublin Institute of Advanced Studies. But he gave a series of lectures, What is Life, in this lecture theatre towards the end of the Second World War. And that resulted in a little book of the same title, which was very influential in motivating people to look for the atomic and molecular basis of genetics. There's been physics here in Trinity since 1724, when the first professor was appointed here. Of course, at that time they called it natural philosophy, and there's been many distinguished names have held the chair of physics, in the intervening years. There was Helsham, there was Fitzgerald, there was Walton, and then some of the more recent holders of the chair were Dennis Weir, who has been a great motivating force in Ireland for science and for the history of science and the history of physics. And then the current holder of the chair is Michael Coey, who's a sort of a world-renowned figure in magnetism. Mike is coming to the end of his tenure as the chairholder, so we will be looking for another chairholder of this is the Erasmus Smith Chair of Natural and Experimental Philosophy. So we'll be, over the next year, I guess, we'll be trying to find someone to fill that chair, and we will be looking for someone, of the caliber of the people that we've had before, I think. Maybe just to say a little bit about the School of Physics today. The School of Physics today is very different from what it was when I joined just over 30 years ago. The number of academic staff was much less, and the number of research students, it was just a handful of research students. So everything has changed a lot. And it might be a little bit of an exaggeration to say that doing research was somewhat of a hobby. There was no pressure to do it, but I think it was recognised if you did some, but you didn't feel pressured to do research and to bring in money. But now there is, of course, enormous effort on doing research in the universities. And there has recently been a lot of discussion about the funding of basic research in Ireland. And the funders and other people, you can listen to a lot of linguistic gymnastics as to try to justify the policy. Maybe it's goal-oriented basic research, or it's excellence with impact, or its relevance. So often it's hard to understand the meaning, but certainly there is a tendency recently in Ireland to put a very strong emphasis on funding research for enterprise. I think this is dangerous because I think the funding of fundamental research, basic research, is critical, I think, to the health of science in Ireland. So I think even if the government and their various agencies was even to put a relatively small percentage towards basic research without strings attached, I think that is very important, for the survival and the health of all the sciences in the country. So today we have 25 academic staff, we have around 50 postdoctoral researchers and around 100 postgraduate students. And then, I mean, there's a corresponding number of undergraduates coming through. We are a major partner in CRAN, the Nanoscience Institute that's just on the corner of Pierce Street and Westland Row. And that's another big change, the way that we're doing research in a different style. There's now an emphasis on gathering interested people in a certain area in a university or across the country and concentrating resources in those institutes. So about half of our academic staff are involved in CRAN and nanoscience. That also has its own pressures and threats to us because we still have to be a school of physics and not just a school of nanoscience. So we have to try and hold the line to have a certain amount of breadth in our subject. And you'll hear a bit more about that research from some of the academic staff in the school today. I think that the success of physics, of course, depends critically on continuing to bring in able and highly motivated students to study the subject. And that choice is made in the schools. So I think the success of our subject in the university is critical on how the subject is taught and promoted in the schools. And I think that there is a need for the schools and the universities to work together, and it's great to see the extent to which that has developed, say, over the last decade. Now there's lots of opportunities for the students to come into the universities and see what it's like. I must say it was very different if I reflect back to my own education. I mean, where I left a farm in Fermanagh and went to the university for the first time just to sit in classes. I hope students don't become blasé about the university, but I think on balance it's good that they have the chance to see the university, to see the people that are in it, and I think it then is less intimidating, and people who might not have chosen to do physics in university might think about it. I think that interaction between the schools and the universities, I think the university, the Institute of Physics has played a very central role in promoting that interaction. There's a very active branch of the Institute of Physics here, and they really do give attention both to second and to third level. And as we know, that they are the organising group behind this meeting today. So I think they are to be congratulated on what they have done for the development of physics in Ireland. And indeed, I think we would always welcome suggestions about how that relationship between the schools and the universities, particularly in physics, is the one that interests us, can be improved. Just this year, there's been a new academic appointed in the School of Education here with an interest in maths and science education. So I think it is an opportunity maybe just to maybe build further on what has been achieved. I mean, one thing that I have noticed that I feel is missing, and it's our fault, but physics teachers doing the HDIP course here in Trinity, we never see them in the School of Physics, and I think that's not correct. So I think that's something that I'm going to work on to maybe get them to do something in physics, but certainly at least meet us and know us. So the School of Physics is very glad to see this large crowd back again, and just to say, we hope you have an enjoyable and a fruitful day, and just to say that the School of Physics is open for, at any time that you have questions or that you want to bring students. So thank you very much.